Hello friends, welcome to a new chapter today. In this chapter we are going to learn about anti-tubercular drugs. Okay, in this anti-tubercular drugs we have two types of anti-tubercular drugs. One are drug sensitive tuberculosis and we have drug resistant tuberculosis. Drug sensitive tuberculosis is given the category 1, whereas drug resistant tuberculosis has two categories. One, we have multi drug resistant tuberculosis. Second, we have extended or XDR TB, that is extended drug resistant tuberculosis. So according to the recent update, category 2 has been stopped now, and as a result streptomycin is no longer an anti-tubercular drug. So streptomycin is no longer an anti-tubercular drug because category 2 has been stopped. Then now if you see new, according to the present status, we have patient, whenever a patient has chest x-ray and if his sputum smear is positive, then we will see whether he has new patient or history of tuberculosis. In both these cases we will start first line ATT, which is nothing but we will start category 1, and after starting category 1 we will see the drug sensitivity. Whether there is drug resistance or drug sensitivity is mainly tested by the CB NAT. Okay, if there is drug sensitivity is present, is positive, then we will continue the same category 1. If drug resistant is present, then you will do MDR TB. We will start treatment for MDR TB if drug resistance is present. If drug sensitivity is present, we will continue category 1. So what is category 1? Category 1 is given for 6 months. 2 months is the intensive phase in which we give HRZE, that is rifampicin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, ethambutol. All these are given for 2 months in intensive phase, and we have 4 months where we have 4 months continuation phase, where isoniazid, rifampicin and ethambutol are only given in this 4 months continuation phase. Then here the drug regimen, here today the drug regimen is daily drug regimen, and intensive phase is not prolonged. And if after 6 months we will do, see previously we used to prolong the intensive phase, but now the intensive phase is not prolonged, but after 6 months we will do sputum testing. If sputum is positive, then we will extend the continuation phase. Okay, so that is for drug sensitive tuberculosis. Then what do you do for drug resistant tuberculosis? If it is drug resistant tuberculosis, then we will see whether it is MDR TB or XDR TB, that is multiple drug resistance TB or extremely drug resistant TB. If it's multi drug resistant TB, in this the resistance is mainly seen for isoniazid and rifampicin only, and here we will give the treatment for a duration of 24 to 27 months. This is very important. Here we give the therapy for a duration of 24 to 27 months, and here the therapy is divided into two phases. One, we have intensive phase, that is for 6 to 9 months, and we have continuation phase for 18 months. In intensive phase for 6 to 9 months, we use the drugs, which are 6 drugs are used, which include kanamycin, pyrazinamide, levofloxacin, ethambutol, ethionamide, cycloserine are the 6 drugs which are used in intensive phase. So we have intensive phase for 6 months to 6 to 9 months, where we use 6 drugs like kanamycin, pyrazinamide, levofloxacin, ethambutol, ethionamide and cycloserine. This can be remembered as KP-LEAP, which is kanamycin, pyrazinamide, levofloxacin, ethambutol, ethionamide and cycloserine. Then we have continuous phase, which is for 18 months, in which we give 4 drugs, which are levofloxacin, ethambutol, ethionamide and cycloserine are given. Even these are given in daily regimen. And the fluoroquinolone preferred in TB is levofloxacin is the fluoroquinolone which is preferred in TB. If for example, if there is resistance to only to one drug, that is rifampicin, then we call this type of resistance as rifampicin resistant TB. What is rifampicin resistant TB? In this there is resistance seen in only one drug, that is rifampicin, then we call it as rifampicin resistant TB. Okay, so for rifampicin resistant TB also we give the same drugs, but we will add INH also in the intubation period. We will give capillaries only, but we will add INH, that is isoniazid, in incubation period it is added. Then after this we have XDR TB, that is extremely drug resistant TB. So if the patient with on MDR-TB is not responding to MDR drug regimen for 6 months, then we rule out MDR-TB. That means we give the MDR regimen for 6 months, and even if after giving the MDR regimen for 6 months, even after that, if the patient is not responding to the drugs, then we rule out MDR-TB and we call that as XDR-TB. So in XDR-TB, resistance is seen to mainly at least 4 drugs, that is both resistance is seen to isoniazid and rifampicin, and along with that resistance is seen to any one fluoroquinolone, and resistance is also seen to any one of the second line agent, which is injectable amikacin, capreomycin or kanamycin. Injectable amikacin, capreomycin or kanamycin. So any of these second line agents resistance is seen. Then we call it as XDR-TB, that means extremely drug resistance TB. Then we have category 5. Okay, in this category 5, the duration of therapy for category 5 is for 24 to 30 months. The duration is for 24 to 30 months. Here in this XDR-TB, we use this category 5. Here the duration is 24 to 30 months. Here we have intrinsic phase is for 6 to 12 months, where we give 7 drugs, and continuation phase is for 18 months, where we give 6 drugs. Okay, so here at the end of 6 months we will see sputum positivity. If there is sputum positive, then we will extend the therapy till 12 months. Okay, so intensive phase is for 6 to 12 months in XDR-TB, where we use the drug for 7 drugs are used. So it is CLAMP MCI, that is we have CLAP MCI, which is capreomycin, linezolid, amoxicillin, para-amino sulforamide, PAS. Then we have moxifloxacin, clofazimine and INH, which is isoniazid. So that is CLAP MCI, which is capreomycin, linezolid, amoxicillin, amoxiclav, then PAS, moxifloxacin, then we have clofazimine and INH. Then for 18 months you do continuous phase, where we use linezolid, amoxiclav, PAS and moxifloxacin, clofazimine and INH. Okay, next. Then what is the most preferred fluoroquinolone? The most preferred fluoroquinolone for MDR-TB, that is levofloxacin. The most preferred fluoroquinolone for XDR-TB, it is moxifloxacin. For MDR-TB, it is levofloxacin, whereas for XDR-TB, that is moxifloxacin. Even XDR-TB is a daily drug regimen. So we will see the first drugs. When we come to the drugs, first we have isoniazid or INH. Okay, so in this isoniazid, the mechanism of action is, this isoniazid is a prodrug. Okay, this isoniazid, in the presence of enzyme catalase peroxidase enzyme present in the mycobacteria, isoniazid, which is a prodrug, in the presence of catalase peroxidase enzyme in the mycobacteria, which codes for CAT-G gene, this will form a reactive metabolite. This reactive metabolite undergoes covalent complex with acyl carrier protein, that is ACPM and Cas. When it undergoes covalent complex, and with the help of NAD it forms INH-NAD, and with the help of NADP it forms INH-NADP. Now this INH-NAD will inhibit INHA and Cas-A genes. Once it inhibits INHA and Cas-A genes, these will inhibit the synthesis of mycolic acid. Whereas INH, that is isoniazid NADP complex, will inhibit mycobacterial dihydrofolate reductase. So this isoniazid NADP complex will inhibit mycobacterial dihydrofolate reductase. So all these both are bactericidal Okay, so this is the mechanism of action of isoniazid. Then if you see here in isoniazid, mainly the most common mutation in this isoniazid is for these genes, which are CAT-G gene. We have genes associated with it, which are CAT-G, INHA gene mutation and AHPC gene mutation. Whenever there is mutation to these genes, it will lead to resistance. Resistance is seen. Fine. Then if we see, this is bactericidal. Remember, it is bactericidal against the rapidly multiplying organism. Against rapidly multiplying organism, it is bactericidal, and it is bacteriostatic against the resting organism. So isoniazid is bactericidal against rapidly multiplying organism, and it is bacteriostatic against resting organism. It is seen against both intracellular and also extracellular mycobacteria, which is important. It is seen against both extracellular and intracellular mycobacteria. Now, pharmacokinetics, it is oral absorption, and this has cross resistance is seen in this isoniazid. The dose of isoniazid is 5 milligrams per kg per day, which can be given as 300 milligrams per day can be given. The dose is mainly 5 milligrams per kg per day, that is approximately 300 milligrams per day. If meninges are involved, 100% CSF concentration occurs in the meninges. So this will penetrate all the body cavities and tissues. So it will penetrate all the body tissues, body cavities. It will penetrate the placenta, and it will also penetrate the meninges. Then it is metabolized in the liver by the enzyme N-acetylation by NAT2. If you remember, for acetylation we have two types of important things. We have slow acetylators and we have fast acetylators. Slow acetylators will slowly metabolize the drug and thus increase the concentration of the drug in the blood, thus causing toxicity. So this is associated with formation of hydrazone complex, which causes increased peripheral neuropathy. Similarly, fast acetylers will increase the metabolism of drug, thus increases metabolites, which will cause hepatotoxicity and decrease the efficacy of the drug. So they will cause hepatotoxicity and decrease the efficacy of the drug. Now coming to the side effects. In the side effects, we have neurological side effects, which include psychosis, peripheral neuropathy is seen. This is associated with paresthesias, numbness, memory loss, and seizures, though they are rare. INH also inhibits the pyridoxal to pyridoxal phosphate, and as a result you should supplement this vitamin B6 or pyridoxine on using isoniazid. Then what is the treatment of peripheral neuropathy? Yes, we should supplement vitamin B6, right? We should supplement vitamin B6 at the dosage of 100 milligrams per day, and for prophylaxis we can give 10 to 40 milligrams per day of vitamin B6 can be given as prophylaxis. Then if you see, in elderly patient it has maximum side effect of hepatotoxicity. So in elderly patient it has maximum toxicity of hepatotoxicity. This hepatotoxicity is also maximum in elderly patient, and it is also seen in patients with hepatic disease, history of hepatic disease or alcoholic liver disease or history of liver disease. In those patients the hepatotoxicity is more. It is also associated with psychosis, seizures, has already been told. It can cause xerostomia. Then it undergoes acetylation. So the drugs which undergoes acetylation will result in drug induced SLE. So even this drug can cause drug induced SLE. It causes hemolysis in G6PD deficiency also. It can cause miscellaneous side effects, like it can lead to tinnitus, anemia. It can cause optic atrophy. So these are the miscellaneous side effects, like tinnitus, anemia, optic atrophy can also occur. Now what about the interactions? Interactions, if you see, this is an enzyme inhibitor. So aluminium hydroxide can inhibit the INH absorption. INH is an enzyme inhibitor. So INH itself, isoniazid itself, inhibits all the drugs which are metabolized by the microsomal enzymes like phenytoin, carbamazepine, diazepam, theophylline, warfarin. Metabolism is inhibits. It inhibits these all the drugs metabolism. Then whenever there is isoniazid poisoning, think that there is isoniazid poisoning, then which drug is used? When there is isoniazid poisoning, we should use pyridoxine, diazepam, and bicarbonates are used in isoniazid poisoning. Then the next group of drug is about rifampicin. So this rifampicin is a semi-synthetic derivative of rifamycin B, which is from Streptococcus mediterraneae. Okay, so if you see mechanism of action, this rifampicin will bind to beta subunit of mycobacterial DNA dependent RNA polymerase. So it will bind to beta subunit of mycobacterial DNA dependent RNA polymerase, and it blocks the polymerization and thus interrupts RNA synthesis, and thus interrupts RNA synthesis. It is actually bactericidal to spurters or slow growing intermittently dividing bacteria. It is bactericidal to spurters or slow growing intermittent dividing bacteria. Next, if you see resistance, here the resistance most commonly seen is against RPO gene. Resistance against RPO gene is most commonly seen. Okay, then if you see pharmacokinetics, it is well absorbed orally, but it should be given on empty stomach, as food will decrease the absorption. Food decreases absorption in rifampicin, so this should be given in empty stomach. This rifampicin is actually safer in renal failure. This is very important thing. This rifampicin is safer in renal failure. It is metabolized in liver to active deacetylated metabolite. It is metabolized in liver to active deacetylated metabolite and excreted in bile and urine. Okay, here for this rifampicin, enterohepatic circulation is seen in rifampicin, and that is the reason why we don't give oral contraceptive pills with rifampicin. It can cross the meninges and it gets pumped out by P-glycoprotein. It crosses the meninges and gets pumped out by P-glycoprotein. It is a potent enzyme inducer. Rifampicin is a potent enzyme inducer. So this is about the rifampicin. Then if you see, it is potent enzyme inducer, and thus it decreases the metabolism of it is a potent enzyme inducer, and thus it increases the metabolism of these drugs like steroids, sulfonylureas, NNRTIs, HIV protease inhibitors, ketoconazole, clarithromycin and phenytoin. It inhibits them, it will increase the metabolism of all the drugs which are metabolized by CYP enzymes, and thus it results in failure of the drugs. Okay, so we should not give OCPs with rifampicin. You should not give warfarin also with rifampicin, because if we give warfarin with rifampicin, even warfarin is metabolized faster, so as a result there is increased risk of thrombosis. Right, what are the dose? The dosage is, it can be used in the dosage of 10 milligrams per day, that is 600 milligrams per day is given. Then we can use it in brucellosis, leprosy and ATT, that is for anti-tubercular drugs. You can use it in meningococcal or Haemophilus influenza meningitis. You can use it in prophylaxis and for prosthetic valve endocarditis. So these are the cases where you can use the rifampicin. Then if you come to side effects, the major side effects of rifampicin are, it is majorly hepatotoxic drug. Okay, and this rifampicin produces red orange urine discoloration, so it has limited compliance because of this red orange urine discoloration, because the patient might think it has a blood and they stop using the drug. Then it can also cause hyperbilirubinemia, but without SGPT elevation. It causes hyperbilirubinemia without SGPT elevation. Rifampicin causes flu-like symptoms, most commonly with intermittent regimen. It causes chills, fever. In flu-like symptoms, it causes chills, fever, headache, malaise, bone pain and thrombocytopenia are seen. It also causes cutaneous syndrome, where it is associated with flushing. In cutaneous syndrome, it is associated with flushing, rash, pruritus, it is associated with flushing, rash, pruritus, watering of eyes and redness. So these are seen in cutaneous syndrome. In cutaneous syndrome, it is associated with flushing, rash, pruritus, watering of eyes and redness. Then if you see, it is also associated with abdominal syndrome, where there is nausea, vomiting and abdominal pain. It can cause cholestatic jaundice and it can cause thrombocytopenia. So remember, once if thrombocytopenia occurs, you should never ever give rifampicin again. Okay, it can also cause light chain proteinuria. So these are the side effects of rifampicin. The next important drug in anti-tubercular drugs is pyrazinamide. Okay, so this pyrazinamide will enter the bacterial cells along with the enzyme pyrazinamidase. This pyrazinamidase converts this pyrazinamide to pyrazinoic acid. Okay, this pyrazinoic acid accumulates in acidic medium and thus inhibits the mycolic acid synthesis by interacting with other fatty acid synthesis drugs. By interacting with other fatty acid synthesis drugs, it will inhibit the mycolic acid synthesis. So because it inhibits mycolic acid synthesis, it is actually cidal to intracellular bacilli. It is cidal to intracellular bacilli or residual bacilli. Okay, it is cidal to intracellular and residual bacilli. It is most commonly seen works against slowly replicating bacteria. It is cidal to intracellular bacilli or residual bacilli, and it most commonly works against slowly replicating bacteria than rapidly replicating bacteria, and it is active in acidic medium. Then if you see the resistance is for PNC gene encoding pyrazinamide. The resistance is mainly for PNC gene encoding pyrazinamide, and here the dosage of drug is 25 milligrams per kg per day of drug can be given, which accounts for 1500 milligrams per day. So if you see pharmacokinetics, in pharmacokinetics this drug is orally given and it is widely distributed. It has good CSF penetration. Because it has good CSF penetration, it can be used in meningeal tuberculosis. Then what are the side effects of this drug? If you see the side effects of these drugs, we have side effects are, there is hepatotoxicity, it is associated with hyperuricemia, then it causes loss of blood glucose control and thus it precipitates diabetes mellitus. On repeated blood glucose monitoring should be done in patients with diabetes mellitus when we give pyrazinamide. Then it causes abdominal distress. Okay, it causes abdominal distress, arthralgia, it causes porphyria and also photosensitivity. Okay, now if you see the next group of drug is ethambutol. So this ethambutol is actually a tuberculostatic drug. So if you see, this ethambutol is a tuberculostatic drug. Now this ethambutol will inhibit the enzyme arabinosyl transferase, which is encoded by the gene MAB. Okay, and this will also interfere with mycolic acid by incorporation into mycobacterial cell wall. It will incorporate into mycobacterial cell wall and will interfere with mycolic acid incorporation. So this has arabinosyl transferase activity. This arabinosyl transferase activity normally involved in arabinogalactan synthesis, but here ethambutol will inhibit this arabinosyl transferase and thus interfere with mycolic acid incorporation into mycobacterial cell wall. Then if you see dosage of the drug is given for 15, it can be given, it has the dosage of 15 milligrams per kg per day, or it can be given as 100,000 milligrams per day. It can be given 15 milligrams per kg per day or 1000 milligrams per kg per day. Here the mutation of the drug is MB gene mutation. is associated with MB gene mutation, and here there is increased affinity of target organ. This MB gene mutation causes increased affinity of target organ. It causes side effect like it causes optic neuritis. Because of this optic neuritis, it causes red green color blindness. Okay, it is contraindicated in a child of less than 5 to 6 years. It is contraindicated in a child of less than 5 to 6 years of age. Then it causes hyperuricemia, so it can cause gouty so it will precipitate gouty arthritis. It can cause peripheral neuritis, has side effect. So dose adjustment is also required in this drug in renal failure. Okay, so this is important about ethambutol. Next, the next group of drug in this group is streptomycin. So this streptomycin is earlier used as first line drug, but now it is not used, but still it is effective against mainly extracellular bacilli, and it is contraindicated throughout the pregnancy. Okay, here we will see resistance against RPSL gene mutation, and here the dosage is for 15 milligrams per kg per day, that is equal to around 1000 milligrams per day of dosage is seen. It can cause side effects like nephrotoxicity and ototoxicity. Next, nowadays we have this fixed dose combination. In fixed dose combination, we give in fixed dose combination, one tablet contains HRZE, that is 75 milligrams of isoniazid, 150 milligrams of rifampicin, 400 milligrams of pyrazinamide, and 275 milligrams of ethambutol, and it is given according to the weight band for the patients. So those with weight of 25 to 35 kgs, we give 2 tablets of HRZE, whereas in intensive phase, and 2 tablets of HRZ in continuous phase. Then the patients with 35 to 49 kgs of weight, we give 3 tablets in intensive and continuous phase, whereas those between the age group of 50 to 64, we give 4 tablets in intensive phase and 4 tablets in continuous phase, and those between 65 to 75 age group, we give 5 tablets in intensive and continuous phase, and those with more than 75 kgs, we give 6 tablets in intensive phase and 6 tablets in continuous phase. Okay, then what are the drug resistance? We have seen ethambutol has other drug resistance which are associated are ethionamide has drug resistance of eta-R gene, fluoroquinolone has drug resistance for GIR-A gene, whereas and GIR-B gene. PAS has drug resistance of Thi-A gene. So here the antibiotics for H for isoniazid 300 milligrams, and it is a cidal drug. So here we can use it for both intra and extracellular agents, and it causes hepatotoxic and safe in pregnancy. Then we have rifampicin. Rifampicin has a dose of 600 milligrams, and it is also cidal in action. It also used in both can be used for intracellular and extracellular organisms. It is hepatotoxic and safe in pregnancy. Then we have Z, that is pyrazinamide, whose dose is 1500 milligrams, and it is also a cidal drug which is mostly useful for intracellular organisms. It is hepatotoxic and avoided in pregnancy. Pyrazinamide is avoided in pregnancy. Then we have ethambutol, which has a dose of 1000 milligrams, and it is a bacteriostatic drug, and it is used on both intra and extracellular organisms. It is not hepatotoxic, and it is safer drug. Then if you see, we have streptomycin, which has a dose of 1000 milligrams. It is a cidal drug and it can cause it is used on extracellular organisms, and it is not hepatotoxic, and it is contraindicated in pregnancy. Then the next group of drug is ethionamide. So this ethionamide is a tuberculostatic drug. If you see this ethionamide, it is a tuberculostatic drug. It is active against both intracellular and extracellular bacilli. It is active against both intracellular and extracellular bacilli, and it inhibits the cell wall mycobacteria. And it is the side effects of this are include, we have nausea. The side effects like nausea and vomiting and anorexia are present. There are neurological symptoms also. It is associated with hepatitis, hypotension and hypothyroidism. Then if you see, the next drug is cycloserine. This cycloserine will inhibit the cell wall. So the cycloserine is actually a cell wall inhibitor, which is again tuberculostatic. So this cycloserine has the side effects of neuropsychiatric side effects are present in this cycloserine. Okay, neuropsychiatric side effects like convulsions, somnolence, headache, psychotic features are present. Then the next group of drug is, we have para-amino salicylic acid. Okay, this para-amino salicylic acid is the agent. First effective ATT to be discovered is para-amino salicylic acid. This will inhibit dihydropteroate synthase, and thus this will inhibit the folate synthesis. So once this this para-amino salicylic acid will inhibit the folate synthesis. It has poor GI tolerance and poor compliance. So because of GI intolerance, it has poor compliance. Then the half-life of this drug is 70 days, and it has side effects like, there are side effects associated with this drug like abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Main thing is, there is body secretion discolorations are more commonly seen with para-amino salicylic acid. Eye, skin, kidney, liver and thyroid dysfunctions are also seen. So in the tuberculosis, this is important. Bacteriostatic drugs which are present in tuberculosis include para-amino salicylic acid, ethambutol, ethionamide and cycloserine are the bacteriostatic or tuberculostatic drugs which are present in which are used in tuberculosis. Then we have the next group of drugs, which is linezolid. What is this linezolid? Linezolid is an oxazolidine which is effective against XDR-TB. This linezolid will inhibit the protein synthesis and has 100% bioavailability. It will inhibit protein synthesis and has 100% bioavailability. The side effects of linezolid include, it causes bone marrow suppression and peripheral neuropathy. It is active against gram-positive bacteria, especially tuberculosis. So the next drug is bedaquiline. This bedaquiline inhibits the ATP synthase in Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Bedaquiline inhibits ATP synthase in Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and thus because it inhibits the ATP synthase, there is no energy which is produced. So this bedaquiline has high volume of distribution. Because of this high volume of distribution, half-life is extended of this drug is extended. Okay, even after stopping the drug, this drug bedaquiline can be detected for almost 5.5 months. Remember that even if you have stopped the drug today, this drug bedaquiline will be detected in plasma for almost 5.5 months, which is actually a lot. No cross resistance is seen in with any other anti-tubercular drugs. Then for MDR-TB, at least there should be 3 to 4 of other drugs of second line should be there for MDR-TB. Then if drug sensitivity is known, if in any case, so if MDR-TB, for MDR-TB, at least 3 to 4 other drugs of second line should be given. So if the drug sensitivity is known, then give the drugs which are good sensitive to the which are good sensitive. If drug sensitivity is not known, then you should give at least this bedaquiline along with 4 other drugs are given. So this is about bedaquiline. Then if you see, the dosage of bedaquiline is 400 milligrams per kg, 400 milligrams per day for 2 weeks, followed by 200 milligrams thrice a week for 22 weeks. We give first 400 milligrams for 2 weeks per day, for 400 milligrams per day for 2 weeks, and you give followed by 200 milligrams thrice a week for 22 weeks. So it is given mainly in the intensive phase. The side effect of this bedaquiline is mainly hepatotoxicity, QT prolongation, and myalgia are the side effects of this drug. The next group of drugs which are important here is delamenid and proteaminid. We have delamenid and proteaminid. So this delamenid and proteaminid, these both will inhibit the mycolic acid in Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Okay, so they will also inhibit mycolic acid, and the side effect of this drug is it causes QT prolongation. Delamenid and proteaminid will cause QT prolongation. Now if you see, if there is HIV, just think that the patient is suffering from HIV with TB together, then you will have to start first anti-tubercular drug for 2 weeks prior to starting the patient on antiretroviral therapy. If the patient is suffering from HIV plus TB together, then you should start anti-tubercular drug 2 weeks prior to antiretroviral therapy. If antiretroviral therapy is started first, but you should start anti-tubercular drug first and then start antiretroviral therapy. But if any case, if you start antiretroviral therapy first, then it will lead to a syndrome called as IRIS syndrome, where there is immune reconstitution inflammatory syndrome. That is, it will lead to this IRIS syndrome. Okay, then we have something called as NICSHI. So what is this NICSHI? NICSHI is a routine online notification for the TB. This is a routine online notification website for online notification of kidney. It is run under RNTCP, has surveillance program. According to NICSHI, tuberculosis is a notifiable disease according to 2012. So this NICSHI helps in tracking the patients, because here we have all the patients' records are uploaded to this website. Then the next drug which is important here is rifabutin. This rifabutin is more effective than rifampicin. Rifabutin is more effective than rifampicin against MAC, that is Mycobacterium avium complex. This rifabutin is more effective than rifampicin against Mycobacterium avium complex. It has longer half-life. Okay. Then the drugs like clarithromycin and fluconazole will inhibit the metabolism, hepatic metabolism of this rifabutin, and thus increases the half-life. Then if you see the side effects are, it has GI side effects like acute uveitis, hepatitis, Clostridium difficile, associated diarrhea. It causes diffuse polymyalgia syndrome, yellow skin discoloration, pseudo jaundice, and pancytopenia. All these are side effects. So what are the side effects which are seen? It causes acute uveitis, hepatitis, Clostridium difficile infection, that is Clostridium difficile associated diarrhea. It causes diffuse polymyalgia. Syndrome. It causes yellowish skin discoloration, which is pseudo jaundice, and it also causes pancytopenia. So this is about rifabutin. Thank you guys for watching my lecture. In the next class we will learn about the leprosy. Thank you.